It's hard to believe that it was 5 years ago today. Where were you sitting, standing, thinking 5 years ago when America elected Barack Obama as the first African American president of the United States of America? Wow. Let's reflect back just a little bit on this version of Get Right with Lenny McAllister, starting right
now. Get Right with Lenny McAllister.
There is not a liberal America and a conservative America. There is the United States of America.
The way we help bring back America and we build the bridges and bring people together is by making sure we hold everybody accountable in a 360 fashion.
So let me close with this. Yes, there is a change that we can believe in, but it will never come from a politician or a government program.
We cannot find physical standing here in the land of Lincoln from Carbondale to Elgin if we collectively continue to tolerate the insanity found on the streets of South Chicago and East Texas.
We got to move away from the American Idol soundbite nature of politics and back to the American statesman of humble servant leadership that we used to see in politics.
It is time to roll out the era of the new, educated, engaged, and energized American citizens.
I go do the jail ministry. I speak to the kids in the streets. So I'm never going to lay down being conservative just as much as I'll never lay down being a proud African American.
I feel like a black republic. Money I got coming in. Can't turn my back on the hood. I got love for them. Can't clean my act if you could.
It's hard to believe that it's been 5 years since we've had either President-elect Barack Obama or President Barack Obama, the first African American in either one of those positions in the history of the United States of America. And we're going to talk about that today. It's Lenny McAllister here on the November 4th, 2013 edition of Get Right with Lenny McAllister. You know where to find me, Twitter, LennyMcAllister. On Facebook, tinyurl.com/LennyPage. And, you know, I've been thinking about this because there was a lot going on. And I'm going to try my best not to sound like a partisan. So I apologize for Republicans that think I'm embracing him too much in this podcast. And I apologize to Democrats that think I'm slamming him like I always do, which, by the way, I don't always slam him. There are things I disagree with. I'm a conservative. I'm a Republican. I'm his evil, or I used to be his evil twin Republican cousin living across the street in Hyde Park. Of course there's going to be things I disagree with, and of course I'm going to voice them. But it doesn't mean I hate him. Never have. I don't see me hating him. It's not going to transpire. So there are going to be people that will probably disagree with the tone one way or another today. I apologize. I'm just putting it out there right now. But for those of you that question my motive with even thinking back on this, I want to take you back, and those that read the book, Diary of a Mad Black PYC, Proud Young Conservative, my book from 2009, you understand where I'm coming from with this. Basically, that book, for those that did not have a chance to read it, go get the book. It's a collection of two different things. Number one, it's a collection of 365 quotes, thoughts, experiences, etc. In essence, a year's worth of a diary, where you get to see what it was like to be a young black Republican watching this young African American, was 46 years old at the time, I believe, going after first a Democratic nomination for the presidency, and then winning that, and then going after the presidential, election, going for the White House, and then winning that. And what goes through one's mind? I mean, it was an array of emotions that were going on out there. I mean, I remember a famous black conservative pundit who I had a chance to appear on a television show with, talking about how liberal Senator Obama was. And he was just too liberal for black America, too liberal for America, wasn't the right fit, not enough experiences, etc. And the host eventually, after slamming Barack Obama for half an hour, was then asked, did you vote for Senator Obama in 2008? He said, yeah, I had to vote for the brother, which of course made me just sit there and say, you got to be kidding me. I thought you said he was all wrong for all these different reasons, but you had to vote for the brother, but okay, whatever. My point is, in bringing this up, over the course of 5 years, our whole view on Mr. Obama has changed from former state senator to U.S. senator to president-elect to now he's been president for going on his second year in his second term. So I just wanted to take a moment to reflect back on what was going through our minds, what was the thought process of this man coming into office, and where are we as a nation moving forward now that he's there? And I'm not talking about from a political standpoint. We talk about that all the time. And I don't want to sit there and point a finger at him exclusively in a castigating type of manner, because we go through that all the time. But I want to talk to this aspect of it. I want to talk to, what was the mood of the nation when he was elected? What did we think we were going to get out of him being president? And again, I posted at the beginning of the podcast, what we used was part of his speech from the 2004 Democratic National Convention. And I used that because that was really where everybody started saying this guy could be the first African-American president. And that's where this really took off from. And not because of the speech itself, but just the essence, the aura that he projected in 2004, where conservatives and liberals alike loved the speech. They thought it was well balanced. They thought he was poised. They already kind of knew he was going to win in Illinois because Alan Keyes was there and he had jumped into Illinois at the last minute, and the whole brouhaha that came about within the Illinois GOP when their candidate, Mr. Ryan, dropped out over the sex scandal with his former wife and the whole unsealing of those court records. But it was a tone. It was not necessarily hope. It was long before hope and change. We didn't hear that moniker for a couple years at that point in time. But the tone and the aura that was projected by State Senator Obama was very similar to what you heard going into 2008 and for much of 2008 from U.S. Senator Obama. And looking back on that, I think if there's anything that we really, really missed out on with this gentleman being the 44th president of the United States, and I know, by the way, I know some of you are saying, he's not a gentleman. Come on now. Until I shake his hand and get to see him to be a dastardly dog eye to eye, I'm going to give him that courtesy. Plus, he's a black father. He is a husband. I'm going to respect him as a child of God. I'm going to call him a gentleman. So let's put that out there again. Disagreeing with policy does not mean he's a dirty dog that sleeps on the floor and whatever. I don't do that. Never have, never will. Just don't have time for that. That's not solution gathering, if you will. That's not in a pursuit of going to a better place in time, in my opinion. So I will call him a gentleman. I think one of the things that we missed out with this gentleman being the 44th president of the United States is that we never, granted, I don't know if somebody could ever live up to the campaign hype. I don't know if anybody could ever live up to what was projected in that speech. I know that we, as human beings, have peaks and valleys along our journey. So I'm not saying he needed to be that all the time. I think that would be unfair. But I do ask this question. Was he that more than he is now? Was he more of that then than he is now? Was he more of that then than he has been since he's been president? Could we have gotten more of that while he was in the White House? And I think it's a fair question. Would love to get your feedback on Twitter or on Facebook, because, you hear a lot about Camelot and the Kennedys. And, people were devastated when he was assassinated. Now, we're never going to experience that. This president's not going to be assassinated. I'm not going to sit there and placate to people that will sit there and say, you never know. No, I'm going to put the positive out there. This president will not be assassinated. So that level of attachment will never happen to Mr. Obama like it did to the Kennedys. But even before that, there was an essence about Camelot, a charisma about John F. Kennedy that just did not hit this White House like we thought it might. You know, and I think that's part of the promise that people saw in 2004. I think that's part of the promise that people saw on the campaign trail late 2007 and probably the first half of 2008 going into Denver, was that we can recapture that again. Now, whether you're a Democrat and you were excited about that from a partisan standpoint, I mean, they still got what they wanted from a partisan standpoint, right? They cleaned out the Republicans in 2008, basically catching on where they left off in 2006. So in that regard, that was accomplished. But from a tone, from a perspective that really resonated for a long-term perspective, that didn't really happen. There haven't been too many high water marks with President Obama. And again, I love your feedback on this. There haven't been as many high water marks with President Obama where he struck a tone with the nation that really made folks shake their head and say, yeah, that's the guy. That not necessarily that's the guy that should have beaten McCain or that's the guy that should have beaten Romney. That's partisan stuff. I'm talking about that's the guy that we thought we were going to get in 2004. That's the guy that we thought we were going to get in 2008. And again, not from a policy standpoint, not from a partisan standpoint, not from a political philosophy standpoint, purely from a residence standpoint, a standpoint of inspiration, a standpoint of speaking to me through the television screen, speaking to me directly, even though I'm in the back row of the rally, speaking to me as one that broke a glass ceiling, perhaps, that I wanted broken myself. Someone that, you're an African-American man and you want people to see you differently. You're a guy that transferred colleges that had to restart their academic career and that reinvented themselves. Or a guy that had to reinvent himself several times. I mean, he was Barry Obama. He was, he actually literally started going by his legal full name, Barack Obama, versus being Barry or Barry O. Taking things more seriously rather than being aloof. Getting and going from Occidental to Columbia to Harvard, which Occidental's not a bad school. But, I mean, you go from being a West Coaster to the East Coast, go to Ivy League, then go to Ivy League law. I mean, there's a lot that people just don't get a chance to feel from it anymore. And I think that that's the biggest travesty of this presidency, is the fact that he could still project it. I still go back to, and people that have been following me for quite some time have heard me say this repeatedly for years. One of the opportunities I feel like he missed was doing something very specific during Black History Month in 2009. Everybody was happy that America could elect an African-American gentleman to become the president of the United States. And that was the only opportunity where he would have been given a pass to have a robust national celebration of Black History Month. And this is what I would have done. I would have, if I were him, I would have had entertainers. I mean, Michael Jackson was still alive then. I'd have invited Michael Jackson, Stevie Wonder, Bruce Springsteen, Beyonce, Jay-Z. I would have invited people across the music spectrum, Carrie Underwood. I would have invited jazz specialists, Herbie Hancock. I would have invited people across the diversity of music in America. I would have gone to a network, brokered something, or brokered it with the national networks and said, on a Saturday night, we're going to have a celebration for an hour and a half to 2 hours of Black History Month here at the White House or here someplace in Washington. And it's going to be fabulous. And at the end of it, Michelle and I are going to walk out and wave to the crowd to show that this is how far African Americans have come in America in a relatively short period of time. 60 years ago, there was Jim Crow all over the South. People were still getting lynched, harassed, shot, raped, killed, discriminated against, and everything else. 50 years prior to that, Dr. King, 40 years prior to 2008, was shot and killed, standing for the rights of people that picked up garbage for a living. because they were men too. They deserve dignity too. 40 years later, you have the first African American president. I would have done that, and then I would have done a PSA and said, listen, young black men across America, did you see the celebration we just did? That was because I got my act straight. You can do it too. People all across this nation said, we'll never have a black president ever. They're never going, they, quote unquote, they would never allow it. And yet here I sit with my black wife and my black daughters, and here I am. You can do it too. Put the guns down in Chicago. Pick the books up in Detroit. Go to class on those college campuses. Treat those women right that you're dating. Open a door for somebody. I remember we did the 40-day fast for the future, starting in 2009, from MLK Day through the end of February, where we were pushing for black chivalry. We were looking to have no black truancy. We were calling for kids to give up bitches and hoes as far as the languaging. Listen and go. I need to give up that languaging, right? To give up that type of language being used amongst young people. And I'm little old me. Can you imagine the impact that President Barack Obama, 30 days into it, 45 days into his presidency, when he was still in a honeymoon period, when people would have given him that leeway, that would have bought him more time. That would have possibly healed some wounds. That would have just completely flushed out all true racists. And then you'd have been able to see the Tea Party people that are disagreeing with policy and racists that will hijack any movement they can because they hate black people, or they hate Jews, or they hate gays, or they hate Catholics, or they hate Asian Americans, or whatever it ends up being, or they think women's place is in the kitchen. Whatever those bigoted people thought, you'd have been able to flush them out and show them for what they are a lot faster. Now, I'm not saying the travesty of the Obama presidency is the fact that he didn't do that in February 2009. What I'm saying is that was just one incident, one example, one moment in time of several where I think that this president had an opportunity to be more of the guy we saw in 2004 and be more of the guy we saw in 2008. Because that's the person that people wanted to be president. The person that's in there now, to me, is too partisan. The person that's in there now pays too much attention to the polls. I think the person that's in there now paid too much attention to Pelosi and Reid and Emanuel and some other folks in 2009. I think the person that's in there now paid too much attention to Fox News when he was first in there. He was too sensitive to the media, the conservative media that was going after him. And then he gave concessions after the Tea Party victories in 2010, only to rally right against those measures in 2011 and then going into 2012. I think he is overreached in some regards. I think he's been arrogant in some regards. And that's unfortunate because the guy that we heard was not arrogant. He was just extremely confident. And there's a big difference. He was not elitist. He was just very well poised. And there's a difference. He rode the line very, very, very well in a way that anybody that was paying attention should have took notes, should have really took that to heart and said, how can I apply that model from my perspective as a conservative, as a progressive, as a young black man, as a young Asian American lady, as a 65-year-old that's looking to finally get their GED or get their PhD. There was something for everybody there, and I think that, unfortunately, and this is my opinion, I'd love to get yours, Twitter or Facebook, you know where to find me, LennyMcAllister on Twitter. I feel like the Obama persona shrunk. And it was eaten by this President Obama guy that is, willing to demonize Republicans and willing to demonize certain segments of the population. And I mean, even now with the messaging that he's involved with, he got caught in a lie as far as if you like your plan, you can keep your plan. There are other things that seem to ride the line with the guy that's in the White House now. And that's why I always use the analogy. The guy from 2004 and the guy from 2008 would find this cat in 2013 and have a serious heart-to-heart talk with him. Might knock him over the head. Boop. Get some sense. Because I feel robbed. And granted, I'm a Republican, and you know, some of his policies I wouldn't agree with, and I wouldn't, you know, kowtow to. But from a persona standpoint, from a gravitas standpoint of what this president means to this country, even if you disagree with his policies, I feel like America got robbed. I feel like I personally got robbed. That I expected more from his persona, more from how he was in the White House. Because the person that we saw on the campaign trail and the person we see daily in the White House, they're not even close. Now, I'm not saying he needs to be the campaigner in chief. That's not what I'm saying. In fact, in some regards, he has been doing a bad rendition of himself from 2004 and 2008 and the prior few years. What I'm saying is, when you have the ability to inspire people every single day and inspire across differences every single day, and it seems like you said no after a while, it's hard. That to me is robbing the people. And that, when I look back on the 2004 speech and the 2008 speech, I remember saying, thank you, Barack Obama, for breaking ceilings and breaking stereotypes in a way that others tried. Some did, some didn't. Thank you for doing your part. I think he could have done more, even after he became president. But that's my take. What's yours? You know, I want to hear from you on Twitter. I can go on about this for quite some time, but I want to hear your feedback. Again, those that continue to engage me on Twitter, thank you very much. You know where to find me, LennyMcAllister. For those that listen on the Facebook page, thank you very much there. We'll be hitting up Global Grind later in the week. Other wonderful projects I'm working on, I'll share them with you soon. In the meanwhile, have a fantastic November 4th. Talk to you soon. TCNG, take care and God bless.